Hello guys, and welcome back to our channel. Now in this video I want us to take a look at a very important warning from a brother who says, don't let the recent praise for Ukraine's president cloud your memory. As Black people, it's important to recall the disturbing reports of racism and discrimination African students and nationals faced when trying to flee Ukraine during the Russian invasion in 2022. Now, despite the chaos and desperation, Black people were denied access to evacuation buses, trains, and borders, forced to walk for hours, and even told to go back to Africa. The hashtag Africans in Ukraine trended on social media, highlighting the shocking experiences of Black people trying to escape the war-torn country. Now, it's important to remember that the Ukrainian government's actions during this time were far from heroic. As we navigate the complexities of global politics and alliances, let's not forget the struggles and injustices faced by our own community. Now in this video, we'll explore the importance of holding leaders accountable for their actions and ensuring that Black lives are valued and respected globally. Now this comes after the Ukrainian president won the hearts of some Americans after what Trump and JD Vance did to him. So with that said, let's take a look at the videos as my fellow Black brothers and sisters share these facts. I will be right back.
Black folk, be careful. I know in the news cycle, we are seeing and hearing about that disastrous meeting between Agent Orange and the Ukrainian president and how that degraded into a shouting match. That truly is an embarrassment. But I want to remind you all, Black folk, that before you start praising the Ukrainian president, because I already saw a Black creator this morning with a post saying the Ukrainian president is the president that we need here in the United States. You know what? Social media has really caused our collective memories to be very, very short. In 2022, at the beginning of the year when Russia first invaded the Ukraine, do you all not remember all of those reports about Black people and African people in the Ukraine who were discriminated against as they were trying, like all the others, to leave the country at the start of the conflict? Have you all forgotten about that? All of the reports of African nationals and Black people who reported that they were discriminated against because of the color of their skin and prevented from leaving and evacuating the country in lieu of Ukrainian nationals. I'm going to show you some headlines so that this will refresh your memory. And y'all, those of you all who are still on Twitter, don't know why you are, look up the hashtag Africans in Ukraine. And then for the rest of us, just Google in the Ukraine and you see these headlines. And that wasn't that long ago. We must remember that the conflict that's going on between Russia and the Ukraine are between two Eastern Bloc countries. Before we start praising an Eastern Bloc country, we need to remember what happened at the beginning of that conflict and how Black folks were discriminated against and prevented from evacuating in a timely manner. Before you start putting Ukrainian flags on your profiles, before you start raising money to go send over to the Ukraine, do not make the same mistake that many of us made with Palestine. Palestinian activists here in the United States and in Europe really showed their anti-Blackness. And we realized, you know what? Okay, maybe we need to remove the watermelon symbol from our profiles because they're so anti-Black. Don't do the same thing with the Ukraine. I'm already seeing y'all. Ooh, President Zelensky is the president. Wait a minute. Do your research first. We need to do our research and remember what we said about not having any allies. So this is just a reminder before you all make the same mistake that a lot of us made about pro-Palestine and that movement.
Friend, I just talked about this in a live that I did on TikTok and a live that I did on the YT. I ain't forgot. And I had to remind people what the Ukraine did to African students at the beginning of the war. I was shocked that some people had not heard about what went down. And so I had to go into detail and explain what happened, how the Ukraine was being towards African students who were trying to get out of harm's way. But I also had to let people know that two things can be true at the same time. It was effed up what the Ukrainian people did to those African students. And it's effed up what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance is doing to President Zelensky and Ukraine. Now, listen, if I wouldn't be in harm's way because of what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are doing, I wouldn't say mums about it. But unfortunately, because of what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are doing, it puts all Americans in harm's way. It's real. Y'all go back and y'all watch my brother's video. If you do not know what the Ukraine did to African students at the beginning of the war between Russia and the Ukraine, he's breaking it down. He's showing headlines that will get you started on your research. It was effed up what Ukrainians did to African people at the beginning of the war. And yes, it's effed up what J.D. Vance and Donald Trump is doing to President Zelensky and Ukraine, because it's turning our allies against us. And that puts us in danger.
I had to learn the unfortunate truth is that every country has a racial slur for black people. Every country. Every single one of them. Some of them, to this day, still call us slaves. Let that sink in. Some of them still call us slaves in certain countries. When I say that we only got us, we really only got us.
Now, just like your brother has said, black people need to be careful, and let's not forget how black people were treated in Ukraine. I want to take you back to 2022. With millions of citizens in Ukraine fleeing the country after Russia initiated a D attack on February 24th, there were increasing reports of racism against black people in Ukraine as they tried to leave the country. The hashtag Africans in Ukraine was being used on Twitter to highlight cases of racial injustice and to highlight the ways that black people were being left behind in the rush to flee danger. And according to The Independent, black people seeking to leave the country had been abandoned at border crossings and had been discriminated against in their attempts to board public transport to evacuate the country. And one citizen even told The Independent that he and his family were denied entry to a bus on its way to cross the border, being told no blacks. I cannot imagine a scenario where palm-color Ukrainians would ever be denied asylum. So how they were treating black people is unwarranted. It's baseless. We were all trying to escape, so let's push a common thread, the citizen said. Now, a medical student also caught in the conflict took to social media to report their experience and said that it continued even after they were eventually able to cross the border after hours of traveling. Several buses crossing every hour and not one foreigner allowed across. They wrote on Twitter, "We finally made it across and we were told accommodation at the hotel is only for Ukrainians. No sleep or food in 3 days. Why does nationality determine who rests?" Now, according to the Irish Times, estimated 20% of Ukrainian students were African. Morocco, Nigeria, and Egypt were among the top 10 countries with foreign students in Ukraine. And it was African activists who initially started Africans in Ukraine hashtag to bring awareness to the issue of racism and discrimination. Since the hashtag was started, videos and images of Black and African students, African citizens, were being denied evacuation from Ukraine had flooded global social media timelines. Now, the UN Refugee Agency responded to these reports in a statement posted to social media. As numbers of refugees fleeing Ukraine increase by the hour, it is crucial that receiving countries continue to welcome all those fleeing conflict in insecurity, irrespective of nationality and race, and that they receive adequate international support to carry out this task. Now, with flights out of Ukraine being grounded, African governments had to support their people from a significant distance. Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced in a statement on February 27th that Nigerians would be granted visa-free access to Hungary and Romania and aid citizens to move towards those borders. Nigeria's president also took to Twitter to condemn the discrimination being reported against Nigerian citizens in Ukraine, writing, "It is paramount that everyone is treated with dignity and without favor. All who flee a conflict situation have the same right to safe passage under UN Convention, and the color of their passport or their skin should make no difference." Now, the African Union also released a statement of its own, stating that the chairs of the AU are disturbed by the reports of discrimination. Reports that Africans were singled out for unacceptable, dissimilar treatment would be shockingly hard to resist and in breach of international law. The statement read, "In this regard, the chairpersons urge all countries to respect international law and show empathy and support to all people fleeing the war, notwithstanding their racial identity." Now, the Chancellery of the Prime Minister of Poland released a statement responding to the reports, denouncing them as fake news. Refugees fleeing war-torn Ukraine are entering Poland regardless of their nationality. The statement read, "Among those cleared by the border guard are also citizens of other countries such as the USA, Nigeria, India, Georgia, and others." Now, leaders and authorities from around the world had also responded to the reports, standing in solidarity with citizens on the ground. And it is quite disturbing that you still have episodes of discrimination just because of one's skin color, especially under such conditions. Spokesperson for South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation said, "Now, sorting refugees according to their skin color or their origins is unworthy." European MP said, "The Polish government must abide by our principles and the law, solidarity with the thousands of blocked African students." Stranded African citizens in Ukraine also took to Twitter Spaces to discuss evacuation logistics and to share their experiences of attempting to leave the country. The Irish Times also reported that Africans who were stuck in Ukraine have been connected on WhatsApp and Telegram for the same purpose. And one Nigerian citizen who was stranded at a train station in Kyiv told The Independent, "This isn't just happening to Black people, even Indians, Arabs, and Syrians. And that shouldn't be the case." I just thought of refreshing our collective memory about the situation in Ukraine back in 2022. Just like our brother was stating facts, with some Americans, particularly Black people, praising Ukraine's president, it's very important to revisit the past and understand the complexities of the conflict. Because in 2022, Ukraine was embroiled in a devastating war with Russia, which had severe consequences for the Ukrainian people, including Black students and nationals who faced racism and discrimination while trying to flee the country. The Ukrainian government's handling of these incidents was concerning, to say the least. And fast forward to the president, and some are hailing Ukraine's president as a leader the United States needs. I feel it's important to remember that Ukraine's president was part of a government that struggled to address the plight of its Black citizens during a time of crisis. And we must be cautious not to overlook the nuances of international conflicts and the leaders involved. It's very important to consider the experiences of all individuals affected by these conflicts, including marginalized communities. I feel my brothers and sisters have a point, but I don't know what you guys think, so share your thoughts as well in the comment section down below. Thank you for always watching, and see you in our next video as we bring you another interesting video.